Sony recently released a brand new picture profile for the a7s III called S-Cinetone. Is it any good? Let's find out. What is up guys, Andrew Boone here, and today we're going to talk about S-Cinetone. What is S-Cinetone you ask? Well, it's a brand new picture profile for the a7s III that is supposed to get you straight out of camera, very good colors and very good skin tones especially. But how does it actually stack up? I've been a Sony shooter for years now, and one area that I will say that they always lacked or fell behind just a little bit would be their color science. And with every iteration of the alpha cameras that comes out, it's getting better and better. And now with the a7s III, we get S-Cinetone, which comes all the way from their Venice line, and they also put it in their Cinema line cameras too. And this is supposed to produce very accurate colors and pleasing skin tones straight out of camera. But how does it stack up? There's only one way to find out, right? So I took my wife out and we got some test shots with S-Cinetone, and in this comparison, I'm gonna compare it to S-Log3, which is what I like to shoot in all the time. This is not gonna be an apples to apples comparison just because S-Log3, it's meant to be graded. It's flat and has a high dynamic range for a reason. S-Cinetone is on the opposite end. I mean, it's supposed to be good straight out of camera for quick turnarounds. But I think it'll be interesting to see how they compare to each other. The results actually might surprise you. I'm gonna show you a few clips to see if you can determine which is which, and then we're gonna dive a little deeper on the computer for a more in-depth comparison. For the S-Log3 footage included here, I applied a Rec. 709 correction LUT. Let's check it out. What you guys think? Hard to tell? Easy to tell? Well, actually, camera A was S-Cinetone, and camera B, S-Log3. Let's hop on the computer and compare it in a little bit more detail. First shot up of the beautiful wife. Let's see, let's find a nice hero frame here for a good comparison. That'll work. Okay, we have S-Cinetone on the left and S-Log3 on the right. And just so you know, the only things that were changed in either clip were either exposure or saturation level. And this was just to get them to match as closely as possible on the waveform. That way we can just compare the colors. From what I see here, they match very closely, and I think her sweater here is a little bit different in color, and her skin tone seems to be a teeny bit warmer. Actually, this S-Log3 in general seems to be a teeny bit warmer altogether. I think overall, we know that S-Log3 has a lot more dynamic range, so we can kind of see that between the light and dark areas of the image. There's just a more pleasing gradient from light to dark, and that makes sense. But I think S-Cinetone looks great. I think that this color here is a little bit more accurate than this one. Yeah, looks awesome. All right, next clip. All right, there we go. That looks good. So similar situation here. This is not apples to apples because the sun came out for the S-Log3 clip here, and you can tell by this harsh shadow, and there was no sun here for S-Cinetone. But overall, this does look warmer, just like the last one. And obviously the sun could be playing a part here. Yeah, but everything looks great. S-Cinetone has more accurate colors again. It's interesting to see that S-Cinetone in soft light versus S-Log3 in harsher light. They're close. I thought that the sun would actually be creating much harsher shadows here, but they don't look too different. And that's due to the dynamic range, once again, of S-Log3. This one surprised me quite a bit, actually. If I were to look this side by side, and someone would ask me what picture profile it was shot on, I could not tell the difference. I think they look just about exactly the same, minus a small color temperature change again for S-Log3, slightest bit warmer. And again, you can see here, I did bring down the shadows and the whites for S-Cinetone so that they match on the waveform. But overall, I cannot tell the difference. Maybe there's a teeny bit more pleasing gradients in the face from lights to dark, but honestly, from far away, I couldn't tell the difference. All right, here. So for another interesting test, I shot a high dynamic range type of shot in my house. Let's turn off the LUT for, okay, so this is straight out of camera. This is what you're getting. S-Cinetone on the left and S-Log3 on the right. So now let's add that LUT back. Cool. As you can see, there's a huge difference in dynamic range here and what you can see in the shadows and the highlights. But what I found interesting was if, let's see, if I adjust the image just a little bit, you can actually get them to match exactly. So I think that the S-Log3 footage is a little blown out here. So I'm going to bring back a little bit of the highlights. There we go. And the whites up here, they're a little off the waveform. So I'm going to bring the whites down too, just so we can see it a little easier. There we go. So this little line here is where S-Log3, that's where the brightest parts of the image are. So let's try to get S-Cinetone to match here. So let's bring the whites down on S-Cinetone to kind of match that line. Okay, right there. Okay, that's pretty close. Okay, now next, right here, S-Cinetone, let's bring the shadows up to try to match this shadow line here of S-Log3. So we're going to bring the shadows all the way up until they kind of match. There we go. Perfect. And now look at your image. It looks exactly the same. If I go to 100%, you can't even see the line almost. It's exactly the same. And then here, if you look down in the shadows, S-Log3 on the right, S-Cinetone on the left. It's very close, right? Very close. Let's even try to bring up the exposure even a little bit more. There. Now you definitely can't see it at all. And from what I see here, the noise is exactly the same. There's no difference in noise whatsoever. That's pretty interesting. All right, so I bring that back and then fit it here again. You see, look, you can get very similar dynamic range from S-Cinetone. It actually holds quite a bit of information in the highlights and the shadows. So this was definitely a surprise to me, and I think this makes it even more appealing. One last test I wanted to do was to check out the representation of colors. And I didn't have a color checker, but I had all these colored pencils. So I shot both of these guys here. And what we have is S-Log3 is on the top, S-Cinetone on the bottom. Let's take off the LUT. That's the original image. Let's put the correction LUT back on S-Log3. And as you can see, oh, the contrast was up here. So I'm going to take the contrast down. This is originally what you get with the LUT. Colors are very similar, and the only difference here is pretty much the contrast in the image. So I will bump up the contrast to get them match as close as possible. Something like that. And as you can see, there are slight differences. I'm sure we can tweak the image just a little bit more to get them as close as possible in terms of exposure. But as you can see, S-Cinetone colors, most of the skin tone area, which is right around here, pinks, oranges, yellows, they are a little bit darker. The skin tones tend to be a teeny bit darker in color, or at least this color spectrum tends to be a little bit darker. So it seems to be exactly the same going down the line until you get to about this area, which is the teal, aqua kind of color. And this actually really surprised me because S-Cinetone is supposed to have very accurate colors right out the box. The actual color of the teal blue area here is absolutely correct on the S-Log3 line. And these two are incorrect for the S-Cinetone. These closely match what I see to my naked eye, and these do not. These tend to shift a little bit more green, especially these two colored pencils here. All right, so that's it. I mean, what did you guys think? S-Cinetone, are you gonna be using it? S-Log3? Personally, for me, I like S-Cinetone. I think it's great. It looks great right out of camera and actually holds more dynamic range than I thought it would. With a little tweaking, you can get it close to an S-Log3 kind of look. Actually, this whole video was shot on S-Cinetone. And you know what? Well, I'm gonna put this in a Premiere and I'm not gonna color grade it. And that's awesome. That saves me a lot of time. And that's pretty much the use case for this picture profile. Anytime you need a fast turnaround, it's gonna serve you very well compared to any of the other picture profiles. There you have it, guys. And like always, you know what to do. Smash that like button, give it that thumbs up. Definitely subscribe. I got more stuff coming, as always. And until next time, later.